What's up guys, it's Connor from T-Sportline. Today we're going to be installing the worn VR12 EVO winch on our Tesla Cybertruck. We're in the process of installing the CTX front bumper on this truck, and we've gone with the VR EVO as our recovery device, so let's get into the install. Tools needed for this install are going to be a T20, T25, and T30 bit or T-handle. A bit driver kit is useful but not necessary. A 3/8 drive with a 6-inch extension and a 3-inch extension, a 1/4 drive ratchet with an extension, as well as a swivel and a T30 bit. A 15, 13, 10, and 8mm socket are all useful. A pocket screwdriver, as well as a 4mm hex key and a 6mm hex key will be needed. A torque wrench, a pair of 13mm wrenches, and a pair of pliers will round out our tools. We have a couple extra tools that we're going to need: a pair of needle nose pliers, some flush cuts or cutters of some sort, as well as a P2 Phillips head 2 screwdriver and a 17mm socket. First thing your kit's going to include is the VR12 EVO winch. It'll also have some wires coming off the back that are already hooked up. One of those is your power lead. Additionally, it'll come with a negative lead and some rubber boots for the power poles on the rear. You will also get a remote for the winch here. This is a Bluetooth unit as well as a hardwire unit. Additionally, we're going to provide the relocation kit for the VR EVO. It's going to come with a few different length wires. Additionally, you're going to get a remote plug relocation, a few more rubber boots for your actual hat, and some mixed hardware for the install, as well as some sheathing. From your CTX kit, you're gonna need your controller plate here. You will also need your fair lead spacer if you're going with a roller fair lead, something with a steel cable. Any sort of synthetic winch will have a solid fair lead. Last piece you're gonna have is your plug relocation plate and the hardware to pair. Let's get into it. We're gonna go ahead and knock these 3 nuts off of the back here. This is gonna be part of the relocation kit, so we can go ahead and remove these wires in preparation to remove our control hat. So it's gonna be a 13mm wrench, and we're just gonna bust those loose. And once they're loose, you should be able to get them out by hand. And with that all unhooked, we can move over to removing our top hat. I'm gonna go ahead and flip the winch on its face. You're gonna have 4 bolts on your winch holding the hat in. They're gonna be little 4mm Allens. You got 2 on the front side and 2 on the back side. So we're gonna go ahead and remove those. And with those 4 bolts out, we can just take our top hat and lift it straight up and off. We'll just go ahead and set that to the side. We're gonna dig into that in a minute. First thing we're gonna do is go ahead and set this on our winch plate. So we're gonna go ahead and put this on, and then we're going to put only this front driver's side bolt in, and only hand tight, so we have the ability to pivot the winch out and have access to the terminal ports in the rear. We've got that bolt in, and we can pivot our winch out and still get access to the rear. Next, we're going to go ahead and pop this lower plate off of our hat. You're gonna need a P2 screwdriver, Phillips head 2. We're just gonna go ahead and remove all 4 of these. And with those 4 bolts out, we can just go ahead and carefully lift our base plate off and out. So you see this white connector here? This connects to our remote plug port on the side here. We're gonna go ahead and disconnect this white plug here and set this whole unit to the side. And we're going to remove this port from the top hat as well as the rubber boot here. Push those guys loose. You may have to put a finger on the inside to hold your nut back into the slots. There's a couple little grooves that your nut can press up against to keep it from spinning. Set that to the side, set our nut to the side, and do the same for the other one. And just like that, our plug is removed. We'll go ahead and give our rubber tab a little wiggle, and it pops right out. All right, so while we're on the table, we're gonna go ahead and take our remote plug here, and we're going to put it flat side up towards the angle like this. Take those screws we just removed with the nuts we just removed, and we're gonna go ahead and thread those on just like that. And we're going to take an 8, put on the back side, and tighten down these screws fully. And then while we're out, I like to go ahead and take our relocation harness here, and we're gonna go ahead and plug it in like that. Now this piece is good to go. We can actually go ahead and install this on the car with our 2 tints. And we're going to use 2 of the button head M6s. And we're gonna go ahead and get these bolted in. So we have our rubber cap here for our plug. Now it's going to go on the car like this, and our little tab here is going to press up on that bracket. We have the option to take a razor blade and cut this flush, or it will slot on and stay on with the tab bent up like this. Just a preference thing. So I've got our control box here, and I actually like to replace these one at a time. So we'll take the yellow short lead off and replace it with our extended yellow lead. We'll do that for the green and the blue lead as well. Just something that's a little easier to get done with the controller box on the table here. So we'll pull this cable off and set it to the side. Won't be reusing that. Take our long yellow one and put it in the same spot. And we'll go ahead and tighten this down fully. Then we'll move on to the green one. Same process, we're gonna go ahead and remove our short lead, replace it with our long green lead, and then tighten everything back down fully. And just like that, we have our connectors all wired up. So we can go ahead and take this plate and mount it to our control plate. So I've gone ahead and got all of our leads connected. You can see I went and took all of our rubber boots and put those on our terminals here. We're not putting the hat back on this, so these boots are essential to keeping these connectors watertight here. But with all of this done, we can go ahead and install this in the car and on our plate. So I'm actually going to install this on the plate on the table. It's gonna be a little bit easier to do before we're under the car. So you can use the 2 of the cap head bolts that we removed that was holding the top hat on and holding the controller to the winch. You can go ahead and reuse these if you would like. We also provide in your CTX bumper kit some M5 bolts that are button head. If you do run into some issues with clearance on your skid tray, I would use the button head bolts, but these cap head bolts from the VR winch should be fine. So I'm gonna take it and slot it on one of the larger washers we've got. And I'm actually going to take my control pack and flip it upside down so that we can see our bolt holes. And we're going to take and put these 2 in the frontmost, and they're gonna line up on the large slots. I'm just gonna go ahead and get those started, and then we'll tighten those down with our 4mm Allen. And we're ready to install this in the car. So now we're up under the car, and I'm gonna take my plate and I'm gonna go ahead and take one of my 13mm bolts out of the winch controller plate bag, and we're just gonna go ahead and slot this up and in. Maybe good to have a friend to help hold this up, or a little bit of flexibility in your knees. And we're just gonna go ahead and get one of these started and on so this control pack doesn't fall down on us. It's gonna pivot a little bit. I'm gonna take our connector and go ahead and plug this in. I'm gonna route it up and over the support bracket for the winch plate, and then take it and plug it in to our harness just like that. And we'll just tuck this up on top of our control pack. Now we can go ahead and put the rest of our hardware in. And we'll get that one started. And we're just gonna tighten these down snug. So I've got my negative cable here, and I'm gonna go ahead and route this down behind our winch plate, and then this is going to connect to this stud right here. So we're gonna go ahead and remove the nut and washers from this stud.
At the time of the install, we put this a little bit out of order, so we're gonna do this now. Essentially what we need to do is we're gonna make sure that we get our ground strap from our controller, be able to pull it through right here on the driver's side, slide it across. Now this is gonna be mounted to the ground pole right here, either under or over our main battery terminal. You can snug that up with 13 mil and then run it through the frame.
And we're ready to go ahead and hook up these wires. So now that we've got our control box all mounted and our ground is all bolted up, we're gonna go ahead and take our power lead here, and I'm gonna run this over the top of our support bracket and have it sitting here right next to our negative power lead that will go up to the battery. Next, we're gonna have our 3 relocation kit wires, and if you notice, we got a ton of length here. We don't really need, but this is all that Warn offers, so this is what we've got to make do with. So we're going to take and push all 3 of these wires up through. You can see I've already gone ahead and put the Warn rubber boot on, but we're going to push those up in front of the radiator and out the back of where the winch is, and we're going to do that for all 3. And we don't need to push a ton of length through, just enough to be able to maneuver and bolt up these leads to our winch. About that much will be good. And then we can hop back up, and we're gonna go ahead and bolt these cables up to our winch, and then we will tie up all this excess wire. Warn has made this really nice, and our poles on the back of the winch are colored. So you'll have a blue, a yellow, and a green, and that will correlate with the blue, yellow, and green leads coming off of our relocation kit. So we'll just match those up and tighten them down fully. I like to start with the blue one at the bottom and work my way up. It's a little bit challenging to get everything fully in place and tighten down if we start from the top. So we're gonna go ahead and tighten these down one at a time. And then we're also going to put our rubber boots on as we go. It is increasingly difficult to get these boots fully in place over these terminals once all of the connections are on. So it is best to do them as you tighten them down one at a time. So now that we've got our terminals and rubber boots all connected in the rear, I was able to push our winch back forward, flush with the rest of the bumper, and we're gonna go ahead and take the remaining 3 winch bolts we have, and we're gonna go ahead and get our winch fully mounted down. And once we have all 4 started, we're gonna go ahead and tighten them down. Torque spec is going to be 38 foot-pounds on these bolts. So I'm gonna go ahead and take our excess here, a whole lot of it that we have, and I'm just gonna zip tie a lot of this together for the moment, and then we can take and zip tie this up out of the way. I'm just going to zip tie our excess up And I'm gonna take my flush cuts, clip off our tails, and we're ready to run our power and ground leads. These are gonna go up kind of through beside the radiator, between the radiator and the frame rail, and then come out the top. May be useful to have a friend up on the top side of the car, grabbing those cables as you feed them up. So I've gone ahead and wired up our winch. You can see our negative lead here and our power lead here. It's hooked up to our external battery system. If you are getting a CTX bumper with a winch, you will get this battery system with your kit. For installation instructions, please refer to the video on our channel. So I have our winch controller here. Now, the Warn VR EVO winch is really nice and has both Bluetooth and wired capabilities. So your kit will come with a harness that's got a 4-pin connector going into the remote, as well as a large connector going into that plug we relocated. Now, if you press and hold the top button on your remote for 3 seconds, you'll see that blue light turn on. If we plug this into the winch, we could press this button again and it would turn over to wired mode. So your top is going to release the cable from the winch and allow you to drag it out, whereas the bottom button will bring the winch cable back in. So let's go ahead and test this thing. I'm gonna press the top button, grab a little bit of tension on my winch. And just like that, our winch is perfectly functional, so we can go ahead and wind it back in just a little bit. We want to have a little bit of lead here so that we can feed this through our bumper and fair lead and then put our hook on the end of it. So that should be enough length there to get that accomplished, and we can move over to that. That's gonna wrap it up for our Warn winches install today. If you like what you see, leave a like and subscribe. And if you have any questions, leave those in the comment section down below. And don't forget to check us out at tsportline.com.